I will start with Darwinism. So we had learned a lot something about evolution. Now with evolution, any evolution, there will be something known as evolutionary theories. Now there were several proponents of the theory of evolution. You had the philosophy of Lamarck, you had the philosophy of Darwin, you had philosophy of Debrusch's mutation theory. But currently modern synthetic theory of evolution exists, and this according to this modern synthetic theory of evolution, it takes into account several aspects. Now let us see what this modern synthetic theory preliminary means. We will go on to it later details, but what is this modern synthetic theory? So here I have written modern synthetic theory of evolution. It is defined by 5 processes. First is gene and chromosomal mutation. So on the chromosome, there is a mutation. A nucleotide was supposed to be there. It is no longer there, or it has changed. And so a mutation takes place. In this evolution, there is a change, gene and chromosomal mutation. There is another issue known as genetic recombination. During meiosis, the gametes, you know that this is say from the father's end, and you have one from the mother's end. So there, from one of these bivalents from the chromosome which you receive from your father and one from your mother, there is a recombination takes place, and a new combination comes out. Suppose one had red eye, one had blue eye. Suddenly you see that one of them gets the father gets converted into the blue eye only. So the children has got blue eye. The next part of the synthetic process is natural selection and reproductive isolation. Natural selection we will be talking about right now, survival of the fittest, right? And reproductive isolation means in evolution, say if two species, two individuals, they cannot reproduce among themselves, they have got a barrier among themselves. It could be geographic, sympatric, or whatever, behavioral isolation it can have. So without mating, gradually this is one reason why which evolution takes place. And another thing is genetic drift. We will talk about this genetic drift much more in details later. Genetic drift. It is also known as the Sewell Wright effect. In small populations, say you have a mixture of 10 individuals which have got, say, brown eyes, and say the individual is a 15 people, and say you have a let's draw it first. I think it's better if I can draw it to you. You have a bottle in the first generation. In this bottle, you have lots of red balls. It's a small population 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 balls only. And you have lots of, say, 5 or 6, 5 of this yellow ball. So each ball is an individual with a character. It is an size. It is an individual with a character, each color ball. Now there is this a small population. It happens gradually in the next generation. This yellow and the red, they randomly mate among with each other. It could very well be that in the next generation you you pick you pick some balls and you put it in this one. It could very well be you are told to pick 10 balls out of this 15 balls. It could very well be you picked up 8 red balls and 2 yellow balls. So the number here, you had 5 yellow balls. The number has decreased into 2 balls. Then in the next generation, they divide. You are told to pick another 10 balls. They will divide. Say we pick up 5 balls. You are told to pick up another 5 balls. It could very well be that all the 5 balls which you have picked up, they are all red. And all yellow balls disappear. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this phenomenon gradually through generation, this is not natural selection. It's randomly you're picking up, and it is happening in a small population. The next generation, your offspring, say you have brown eyes and blue eyes population, right? Eyed population. They are mating such a, it can happen that say for example one brown eyed boy likes a yeah, blue eyed girl, and they marry and they have maybe brown and blue eyed both children. It could very well be if there are 10 brown eyed boys and 10 blue eyed girls, and among them it could very well be as if you have 10 brown eyed 10 brown eyed individuals and 10 blue eyed individuals in a population of 20. It could very well be that a brown eyed boy, when he gets a blue eyed girl, they'll marry and they'll have a mixture of blue eyed and brown eyed boys and girls. But it could very well be that a brown eyed boy may like a brown eyed girl and they will marry, and the blue eyed number of blue eyed individuals, they may not get a mate. In the next generation you'll have less number of blue eyed individuals. Then again the same thing, preference for brown eyed takes place. In the next generation again, it could very well be that the blue eyed individuals, they disappear. It is preference. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes, sir. মাইকটা অন হচ্ছিল না।
বুঝতে পেরেছো?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Okay, so let us get back to Darwinism. So Charles Darwin, in the 1860s to 70s, he traveled a lot, and in one of his travels, he on the HMS Beagle ship, he went to the Galapagos Islands, and there he saw Galapagos Island was bit geographically isolated from the mainland, and what he saw was that he saw several species of finches there, and these finches, they were grayish in color, but they looked more or less similar. But they saw that they were different. They were reproductively isolated or not, they did not eat. He saw that some of them eat fruits, some of them eat insects, some of them eat berries. There are a lot of food pattern varies. They don't mate with each other. Some of them, their voices are different, but some are a bit larger, some are smaller. So he saw that they sort of they look the similar. From this he came to know, okay, he came to this theory of um, natural selection, the theory of natural selection. Now his observation was that all organisms, without any exceptions, they reproduce at a much higher rate than required. Fishes, they lay millions of eggs during spawning. Millions, সবকটাতে, all of these eggs will not hatch to become hatchlings. And oyster, they lay up to 60 to 80 million eggs. He also calculated that if a pair of houseflies lays all its eggs, and if all offspring survive and reproduce to their full potential, then in one season from March to October, it will have a progeny of so many individuals. Do you see so many flies? You don't. Elephant is the slowest breeder. Its reproductive age is 30 to 100 years, during which it produces only 6 youngs. Darwin says that even this is overproduction, because if all its offsprings and their offspring survive and reproduce, then one pair will give rise to 19 million offsprings in 750 years. So একটা জন্মে, if an elephant in one lifetime has got 6 children, and all the 6 children has got 6 children each, then in 750 years you'll have 19 million elephants present. But unfortunately, reality, you don't see them. The second is number is constant. In spite of overproduction by all organisms, their number in a given area remains more or less constant, because in an ecosystem there is a limited capacity to support a number of particular species. For example, in a region, if you have in a small house, in my house, so we have, it has got a maximum capacity to support 2 people, and we are having 4 people living over here. Immediately we find problems in water, space, there is conflict among individuals. All these things keep on taking place, resulting in which suddenly we decide that we don't stay in this place anymore, or there is so much conflict and yeah, problems coming that people decide to separate and go their different ways. And in the case of animals, if they don't get sufficient resources, they die. So, despite having lots of children, only a fixed number of individuals stay in a particular ecosystem. So, first step was, the first thing I had to talk about was, I talked about, that was overproduction. Lots of offsprings. The second thing which we had seen was number of offsprings in an ecosystem remains constant despite having overproduction. Now let us go to the third aspect, variations. No individuals are alike. Even within a species, race, or cohort, there are variations among individuals in appearance, physiology, and capacity to starve. Like I have got diabetes, my sister does not. Although we are the same siblings from the same parents, still she does not have diabetes. I have. So no two individuals are same. Some individuals, as for example, if I live in an atmosphere full of only sweets, I will die because of my diabetes. But my sister will thrive very well because she does not have the diabetes. So my sister will have a selective advantage. Right, in an atmosphere, in an environment where there only sweets are present, but I will not have, I will die out. So if I die out, I'll have no children, nobody is going to follow me. But my sister is going to have lots of children who can digest sweets, and they will have no diabetes, and gradually it will happen that all individuals will have nicely sweet metabolizing genes, no diabetes. The ones with diabetes will die out. But we actually, diabetes cases are increasing. There is also a reason for that, but we will not discuss about that. The next thing is struggle for existence. So the third point which we saw was variation among individuals. And the fourth one was there will be a struggle for existence. Correct. Are you able to understand so far? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we had seen that in the struggle of existence, large number of offsprings will struggle for the resources. For example, a dog lays something like 6 pups, but all the 6 pups, they will be are struggling to get milk from the mom. Over there, the strongest of them will get the milk and will survive much better. So there is a struggle for resources and a struggle for existence. Imagine one egg per month released from a mother, and something like 5 billion sperms from the father. One egg. Out of this, only one sperm will successfully fertilize the egg. There is a struggle for this resource of egg. The strongest sperm survives. And even among the eggs, something like 100 follicles you have seen developing. One follicle will form the real egg. There is a struggle for who is going to be the strongest. So right from before you were born, You were born into competition. Like in Three Idiots, life begins with murder. This is the truth. Whether you like it or not, life begins with murder. Clear so far? What is struggle for existence? Yes,
Yes,
no?
sir.
Okay. And then you have the most famous Darwinian statement, that is survival of the fittest. So this means in a changing environment, changing environmental conditions, right? Some individuals gain selective advantage. And these individuals, they are selected. They are selected. And the rest die out. Okay, so in a changing environmental conditions, some individuals, they gain selective advantage. For example, in a hot country, individuals who are capable of surviving in hotter, warmer temperatures, they will survive, and those who are not that capable, they will die out. Especially, this is more prominent among offsprings and children. COVID resistant individuals, they will the COVID resistant individuals, there are them, they will survive since they are the fittest. Those who don't have COVID resistance, they will no resistance, they will die out. We had seen this natural selection taking place just a few years back. Those who adapted to online life, they survived. Those who could not adapt to online life, they died out. Those students don't study. So there are certain criticisms of Darwinism. They mentions the survival of the fittest, but it does not explain about the arrival of the fittest, which means a character needs a long time to develop before it can become useful or fittest. For example, a bird's wing or electric organs of fish must have taken millions of years to develop fully, and during this period of growth, they were not useful organs and therefore should have been eliminated by natural selection. That means, say, tomorrow I wanted to fly, for example, if humans had the power of flight, or the ancestor of humans had the power of flight, needed the power of flight, some people could jump higher. So by the time of trying to jump from generations after generations and generations after generations, yeah, that particular character of a wing developing, it will take several generations. So this several generations, this particular wing or the electric organ of fish, it will not be the perfect developed organ that is going to give you the selective advantage. How does Darwin explain it? You cannot explain this. It's almost similar to this thing about Lamarck. He said that giraffes did not have long necks before. So, just in order to gain advantage of eating the leaves on higher trees for generations of generations, it tried to stretch its neck, and its neck became longer. So, this particular criticism essentially is not Darwinism. So this criticism, the first criticism was that it mentions that, okay, fine, those fishes which had electric organs got a selective advantage, right? And so in a changing environment where the it is going to stun its prey, to get more prey, it's got an electric organ. But for this electric organ to develop in a fish, it will take generations after generations when it is not fully utilized. So essentially, their criticism was of Lamarck, not of Darwin. So this criticism does not is not valid, because minor changes in Darwin, for example, you will see that some people, they like the warmer climate a bit better. It is assumed that in this warmer climate, this individual will be able to reproduce better, and its children will have more capability of reproducing better. But it doesn't mean that that individual who doesn't like warmer climate will not reproduce. So on sometimes, but that person individual will not be able to reproduce as much as the one who likes a warmer climate. So gradually throughout ages, what will happen according to the modern synthetic theory of evolution? People who like warmer climate will be more selected in that region. It doesn't mean that this particular colder climate will loving people, they will totally die out in the next generation. It's not like that. They will have less number of offsprings who will not be able to survive better. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand what this criticism is and why this criticism doesn't hold? Because this criticism is Lamarck's criticism. It's a criticism to against Lamarck. So the changes are very small, but still that gives a selective advantage. Then Darwin believed that all variations are heritable, which is not true. Only genetic variations are heritable and not the somatic ones. During Darwin's time, the mechanism of heredity were not known, and he tried to give his theory by a theory known as pangenesis. You don't need to read about this theory because this is not valid anymore. So actually, I would consider this as Darwin did not know the nature, the mechanism of inheritance, right? He did not know how. He told that it was heritable, but how? What was herited? What was inherited from parents to other generations? He did not know it. That, everybody, was found out by the great Gregor Mendel. No amount of respect to this individual called Mendel is sufficient. He found out he gave the first three principles of inheritance. And it is very sad that Mendel and Darwin, they lived at during the same time. Darwin was in England, in London, enjoying his Earl Grey tea coming from Darjeeling. while Mendel was Brunn, currently now in Czechoslovakia, in the Brunn monastery, and he was conducting experiments on pea plants and other things, and he was a father in an church. Also, the first time perhaps you can document that where religion married science. So you can really actually see uh, that they existed during the same time, and they did not know. Mendel was a very humble person. He did not want international fame. But Darwin, like all the British, they are always one good, somebody does X amount of good things, it is amplified by the media into 10x or 15x. This we have also learned. So Darwin, he was criticized, and there was, oh, we come from monkeys, and there are a lot of things. Darwin also faced his struggle from his theory. Yeah, he was considered, oh my God, we are monkeys, and he was abolished by the church, and a lot of things happened. So Darwin was also, but he was very famous. Darwin was very famous, but Mendel was not famous. He died in 1885. Nobody knew about the theory, his paper on inheritance theory. He was later rediscovered in 1905 by three individuals separately who wanted to take credit for a work, but they found that in 1869 Mendel had already done that work. So they lived at the same time. And there was also another reason why they did not meet, was Mendel did not know English. He spoke in German, and Darwin did not speak German. And Mendel only visited England once in his lifetime, and there is no evidence of him having met Darwin. But Mendel was very aware of Darwin's work. So he had after his death, in his monastery room, they found he had a German translated copy of Charles Darwin's Origin of Species. He had a German, and there he had mentioned that Darwin's theory for he had his own theory, and he put it there that this genetic he tried to explain that this genetic mechanism of this evolution. So this is about Darwin and Mendel. You have lots and lots of things written, and they lived at the same time. Unfortunately, if they had met at that same time and they communicated properly, the world would have been perhaps 50 to 100 years more advanced. We would have been living in other planets. Okay. Another criticism of Darwinism was many useless and non-adaptive characters also persist in many animals and are not eliminated. For example, small tails in giraffe or pig, ear muscles and appendix in man have to have no selective value. What is the use of our appendix? Or a small tail of pig? If in pig it is no use at all. They don't need it for balancing or hanging in trees. Monkeys need the tail for hanging in trees. For balance, they don't need it. But why is it there? Actually, uh, you can't say it has got no selective value. This is where Darwinism differs. Generations after generations, the non-requirement of appendix led to the current generation of men having smaller appendix. Maybe if human beings evolve much more, maybe another 10,000 years later, you will see that there is no appendix. It has been selected out. So having a vestigial organ is as good as saying we are in this particular organ is being eliminated. The tail has already been eliminated in us, but so many 10,000s of years went, generations went, after which suddenly we find the human beings which have developed have got no tail. Okay, the next criticism is Darwinism does not explain over specialization, which ultimately leads to extinction of species. For example, dinosaurs became extinct due to over specialization in body size. Their body size became huge, but when their extinction came, suddenly the resources became limited after this during this KT extinction event which took place, Chicxulub crater or Deccan volcanism, whatever happened during that time, they could not support their large size bodies. That was fine when the earth was filled with complete vegetation, totally the largest size of their bodies. They could absorb more sunlight and they could exist much better. Just hold on. হ্যাঁ অমিতাভ দা, আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, হ্যাঁ 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 হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা ম্যানেজ করে দেবো, আমি ম্যানেজ করে দেবো, ঠিক আছে। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমি বলে দিচ্ছি। ওকে 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 ওকে। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমি বলে দিচ্ছি সবাইকে, ঠিক আছে, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই। আজকে কলেজ ইনচার্জ অমিতাভ দা বোধহয় একটা কাজে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে। ওকে, সো this is how the things went. Okay, they became extinct. So there are other struggles over here. I would like to, before I finish today, I would like to talk about one more aspect, and that is the type of okay, this part I should continue today. So are you clear about Darwinism today? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tomorrow we will talk about, tomorrow also I will request one more class. We will be talking about neo-Darwinism and certain other evolutionary theories. Do you people have got any questions?
No, sir.
No
No,
questions?
sir.
Okay, okay. Then I'm ending the class tomorrow also, same time. Please try to be there. Okay?
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Okay.